Converted Man here. I've got David John Wellman, DJW, with me. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. I had a fantastic morning.
That's good.
I was that. By the way, that's very loud, even in person.
I told you.
Converted
I
one.
told you. I warned you.
You did warn me. Yeah, I was telling you before we went live. I got up early this morning to watch the Webb Space Telescope do its final unfolding. The starboard side of its mirror, the big golden honeycomb that's going to reflect the starlight, and it was like sheer terror of making sure everything unlocked because those are all single point failures, and then the 5 minutes slowly unfolding, and it was just it was an animation based on telemetry, but it was just so extraordinary to watch over 5 minutes as it took its final shape, and it just you feel the numinous, as Sagan would say, just feel awestruck. And then when it finished and everything was good, somebody in the live chat said, "Nice cartoon. The Earth is flat."
It's like all this, we've spent years researching this and thousands of dollars developing it, and hundreds of thousands of man hours been put into it, and all of humanity's different discoveries have led up to guys, it's a cartoon.
Yeah,
Go home.
I don't
Okay.
want to. I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but if they can spend those billions and trillions of dollars on duping the whole world for thousands of years, they can probably arrange for a few dozen YouTubers to have happy accidents.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you
hit
would
number
think.
one. That's
Yeah,
BS.
the thing with the if it's an actual conspiracy and you discover it, you're gone. Like we won't hear from you ever again. Like, hey, I
Yeah,
found Bigfoot. Wait, where did that guy go? All right,
pretty
yeah, back
much.
to
Yeah,
whatever. He had a that's when he just disappeared one day. That's
yeah,
weird.
yeah. There's a great video on this. Professor Dave Explains, I think, has a great video on how you can disprove flat eartherism without even looking at anything, without any knowledge of science or anything. Just use your brains.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, you definitely use your brain on your channel, and I've watched a number of your videos. Um, and it's way amazing content and great quality, and so I hate you because you're way better than me, so that's
Oh,
fine.
hey, come on now. Do you have no idea how much voice editing I need? Because I go audio only. I don't know if you know this, but I've been on YouTube since like 2009 or so, and I used to make videos like a decade ago where I would show my face and just talk to the camera. I don't do that anymore because I I like to keep a kind of a separation between my YouTube life and my personal life these days, and B, I'm just not pretty to look at. I'm really not. So I go audio only, kind of like you do, but um
I show my face every
you do
now
show
and
your
then.
face. You're
Yeah,
braver than I am. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't sound so great either. So I need a lot of vocal editing so I can listen
you're
to myself
auto
without
you're auto
wincing.
tuned. All
That's not
right,
a bad
so
idea.
you are what's I'm gonna get that off here, we don't need that now. You Are you an atheist, agnostic, skeptic, some other label? What's the preferred or do you like that sort of labeling? What do
I'm
you
an
think
a
of that?
I'm an atheist. I am a positive atheist. I consider myself a positive Gnostic atheist as opposed to an agnostic atheist. I do think that I know that God does not exist, but that's kind of I regard that part of it as kind of trivial because if it's true justified knowledge, then it's true that God doesn't exist. I'm justified in thinking that God doesn't exist, and I think it's true that God doesn't exist. Um,
Yeah, it kind of folds in on itself after a
so
while
if you
with
think
all
it's
the
true and if you think you're
yeah,
justified, then getting your problems aside, how that's kind of knowledge right there.
right. And
So
were you raised as a non-believer? Did you
I
or
was
were you
raised as a Methodist, and I briefly went through a Baptist phase before becoming an atheist. I my parents were kind of social Christians, pretty much. Go to church to network with people, to have a community of people, and yeah, I don't remember any particular complaints about church. In fact, I was fairly active in youth group for several years. Uh, I went through an objectivist phase, an Ayn Rand phase when I was in high school. I talked about that in a recent video. Um, about there's a YouTuber named the Reconverted Catholic. This is why I say I need a lot of voice editing. I do that a lot. Who went through an atheist phase. His was like 10 years or so. Mine was like a year or two. Otherwise, his atheist phase sounds a lot like my atheist phase. I was just kind of a rebellious thing. I discovered Ayn Rand. This was before the internet, so Ayn Rand was what I had instead of, firebrands like Dillahunty. So I just kind of, you can watch that video for more. But basically, then I went back to the faith and then left it for good, as a lot of people do in college.
Was there any one thing, or was it a number of things that kind of like settled you? That moment of like, okay, there's no God, or was it, emotional, or anything like that, or?
Well, anyone who says that there's no emotion involved in conversion or in deconversion is lying. There's always some emotion involved, if only the emotion of courage, of being willing to follow your reason where it leads. For me, it was a bit more emotional than that, but basically, I was worried. Uh, I was worried that there didn't seem to be a lot of rational support for what should be not only something that is true, but something that is the most true, the truest, the most true McTrue pants thing in that could possibly be true. Which is what everyone was telling me Christianity was, and I thought it was true, but how can it be that true if it's not immediately apparent to me, and for that matter to others? So when I entered college, by the way, a lot of Christians are worried that college is kind of a breeding ground for atheists, and in my case, they were right. But the college I went to was a good conservative Lutheran college, and they had a course that they offered to freshmen, which was about Christian apologetics.
Uh-oh.
Which, well, it was called Faith and Reason, and part of it was on comparative religion, but the main focus was apologetics. And I decided to take it because I wanted to kind of find out what the answers to these were, so I could feel better about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the apologetic courses. They do not seem to teach informal logic at all. That's like a separate thing that you would have to learn on your own. At least from what I've seen of apologetic courses. Was that true of yours, or?
That's incredibly true. The professor who really good guy, by the way, the professor who taught the course later acknowledged it might have been a mistake, because the course, as I said, was open to freshmen, but the course that the college took on symbolic logic was only open to sophomores and above.
That's
So
yeah. Well, symbolic logic I could understand, because that's kind of a separate, almost a higher tier thing. I mean, but informal logic of just understanding, the premises and how to construct an argument, and syllogisms, that's very accessible, and it just I feel like it's a deliberate choice of apologetic classes to avoid learning how to identify fallacies. Like, oh no, let's not do that, because then they'll realize how bad the arguments are. Like, get
well,
the
they
argument in their heads, stuck first, and then they can learn logic. Or
yeah,
it just feels deliberate to me. I don't know, but
it's certainly at least subconscious. They have no problem, very happy, in fact, to invoke fallacies when they think we're committing one, or when they can persuade their audience to think that they're committing one. They want to. My dad was in advertising, and he told me that the secret to good advertising is not to make people think, but to make people think they're thinking. And I think that's true of apologetics as well. Make people think they're thinking. Teach them a few of the fallacies, enough to let them feel like they're lording it over us.
Yeah, it presents the aura of intelligent discourse, and so you feel like I'm intellectually justified to continue this belief.
Yeah.
And every now and then I'll hear, theists talk about struggling with doubts, and I'm like, embrace those doubts and just let it go. Let the
Yeah.
faith go. I mean, the doubt is there for a reason. You wouldn't have to doubt if it was true. Like, there's not a moment that I doubt biological evolution, because there's just overwhelming evidence for it. So it's like, there's no doubt there. And if there's a question, it's like, okay, let's explore that. There's no fear in learning I was wrong. Whereas when I was a believer, there was kind of a like
dread.
A dread of, like, but you don't really necessarily know it. It's kind of like so abstract, because you don't really even question your own faith when you're a believer. At least I didn't. You never really pause for thought. So maybe apologetic courses, actually, in this case, it seemed maybe it actually did it begin making you question these answers. They seem like hollow answers.
I'm certainly not the first person to say that apologetics have backfired. When I learned the arguments and stuff, and again, this is something I talked about in my videos. The first paper we had to pick one of three arguments: the cosmological, the ontological, the teleological, or the design argument. I chose the cosmological argument, and in fact, I chose the Kalam cosmological argument.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, well, I've done a whole playlist, but anyway, two days before the paper was due, I scrapped it, and I did the teleological argument instead. And the reason I scrapped it was I couldn't these premises, the premise that everything that begins to exist has a cause. Okay, why? Why is that the case? Well, it's just obvious. It's not obvious to me. I mean, look around you. The things. Do you see anything popping into existence, like trees or anything? Do you just see them just popping into existence? I thought, well, no, but there's a big difference between trees and things inside the world and the universe itself.
Right.
I mean, do the apologists not realize this?
Yeah, it's a cause and effect. It's playing on the idea that, you have the chicken and the egg, and so that's something that we all, it's like, well, you have parents, so there's some, there's cause and effect. Okay,
yeah,
I get
it's an
that.
appeal. It's an appeal to intuition,
Yeah,
and
so
I just didn't have the intuition.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that it was true. I just didn't think that I could show it, except to say, "Come on, it's just obvious," which I didn't think a college professor would accept. Turns out that's exactly what Dr. Craig.
That was
uses.
this entire dissertation on it. It's amazing, how people. And then somebody else was working on a dissertation about one of the other ones. I think it was teleological argument or whatever. But it's just like, how can you have a degree based on such a flawed argument? I don't. This is only possible in philosophy. It's not. It's not something that we see in science at all. And I point this out, and people, oh, that's, you're just a materialist and naturalist, and you're doing scientism. I'm like, no, I don't think so. I don't consider myself materialist or naturalist, only because they make those statements of everything is natural or everything is material, and I'm like, I don't know everything about everything. I'm not going to make that statement.
Yeah, I don't commit to those either.
Yeah, but I mean, I suppose as far as what I've observed is like, well, I could probably make the statement that all we can observe is natural or material, at least according to those who propose the supernatural. Oh, what is this realm that you're talking about? And how do you prove it exists? Well, and then they go off on the argument. It's like, well, that didn't prove anything.
Yeah.
it's just So, um, you deconverted slowly. You come to this realization, or
It
you
was
start.
it,
What's going on here? You're like, oh, do you?
it was pretty slow, but I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember one. There are moments when I remember there are certain key moments in the process. One of them I always remembers was going to the library, and I was so trepidatious about this. I didn't even go to my own college's library. I went to a neighboring college's library to maybe find. Well, maybe let's see what one of the atheists has to say. That's how nervous about it. I felt like I was kind of betraying
It's like
myself,
you're
betraying God,
committing
maybe.
blasphemy or something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But the key moment that I remember most, like it came before that, I think. No, I'm sure it did come before that. Was it was toward the end of the course I was talking about, and in spite of the whole cosmological thing, I was feeling pretty good about my faith. I was feeling pretty good. I felt like, yeah, these things might work. They might convince others. They might be able to rationally justify my faith. And one argument in particular that I thought was just really compelling. I looked at it. I wrote a paper on it. I examined it this way and that. I couldn't see any way around it. The logic of this argument was just inescapable. So one night, this is early days of the internet. I was in a Christian chat room, and one of those troublesome atheists came in and started kind of bothering us. I don't remember exactly what he said. I just remembered, oh God, this guy is back. Why does he bother us? I'm like, oh guys, I am so ready for this guy because I've got something that neither he nor any atheist I think can possibly defeat. So I cracked my knuckles and I typed, say atheist, have you ever heard of something called Pascal's wager?
Oh no.
He said, yes, I have, and here's what's wrong with it. And the next 20 minutes of my life are just a blur. I think I blacked out. I don't quite. They were very revelatory for me. The whole experience, the whole thing. Okay, in hindsight, it's obvious to see, of course, but that moment was just like, if I'm wrong about that, what else am I wrong about? If they teach that the arguments are cannot be defeated,
But they can be.
and you learn that they can be, what kind of mindset does that invoke? And to be fair to my instructor, who, as I said, was a great guy, I didn't learn that from him. He took a much more thoughtful approach to all these arguments. He was pretty frank about the weaknesses, but he didn't go into these weaknesses about the Pascal's wager that I was hearing from this atheist in this chat room that, again, I couldn't find a way around. So that was the beginning of the end.
Right.
As far as my faith goes.
And so when you finally got that point, when you got to that point of where there's this like declaration, was there like a declaration of there's no God, or was it a quiet moment, or
it was a quiet moment. I was lying in bed, I was thinking, and I kind of like, well, okay, yeah, all these atheists are making good points, but I still believe in God, right? Wait, no, I don't. Oh my God, there's no God. It really was just like.
What did that feel like in that moment, or what?
It was. I don't remember emotionally what I felt in that moment. I just remember it was just kind of huh, wow. And I kind of sleptwalked through the next few weeks of my life, I think, because I'm like, it's like you've been wearing red colored glasses your whole life, and suddenly someone swapped them for a blue colored pair of glasses. Like, huh. I'm too busy looking at things to really think about what I'm feeling. And then after that would come the phase that I think most new atheist converts go through, which is being really gung ho about your atheism and spreading the good word.
Yeah. Hey,
Which
everyone, you're all wasting your time.
everyone,
So
yeah,
good.
yeah, that came eventually, as it does for most of them. Uh, but yeah, there was just a kind of quietness before that, just kind of like,
The
so
calm before
what
the
else is
storm.
true? What else is true about the world? Given that there is no God, what else is true? What does that mean? And it was a fascinating time in my life, learning things without fear that it might contradict what I believed, because I no longer believed that, so I didn't have to worry about it. So it was, I wouldn't choose to give up a belief that I hold just because I can feel like it's liberating. That's just a nice little side effect. Um, in fact, one of the positions I hold is I'm a doxastic involuntarist. I think that beliefs are involuntary. I don't think you can control what you believe. I mean, anyone who's watching this right now, a few people watching this, hello, how you doing? Try to believe right now, just by will alone, try to believe that London is the capital of France. You can't do it, can you? Beliefs are involuntary. You can't control what you believe. I could control going to the library. I could control getting those books on atheism, but I can't control the fact that they did convince me.
I mean, it might be that over time you could convince yourself that something was true or false.
I could try to put myself into
Yeah.
the circumstances where I would be likely to be convinced or compelled by what I choose to surround myself with,
Right.
and
And I
that would
think
be that
that's
would be on me.
that's essentially what religion is doing is constantly putting you in a situation where you're surrounded by people that all believe this thing, they act like they believe it, and they dedicate a lot of time and money to it. So you just your brain just gives in and convinces itself that it's true because all these other people act like it's true. So I mean, it's got to be. It's just this kind of
I think
thing that
that's
happens.
I think that's pretty close to what actually happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've done, where they'll have the experiment of people facing the wrong way in the elevator. They're all facing the back of the elevator, and the person, slowly turns around almost every time, like it's inevitable that, or they'll do the one where, they're doing a test on which line is the longest, and the three other people, say the right answers, and then the question comes, and they all give the wrong answers, and the last person is like they give the right answer, but they feel really like, and then they start giving the wrong answers.
Groupthink.
Yeah, so it's just the other people of course were actors, but then of course they can actually replace the actors with people over time that are just saying the wrong answers, thinking that must be the right answer. So it's full of people that don't know that it's a test, saying the wrong answers even though they know it's the wrong. It's just so weird that our brains do this, and trying to explain that to people over and over again. I just had a message where somebody was like, "Oh, NDEs are not just the product of the brain doing this thing." I'm like, "No, that's actually precisely what they are." Like, you just immediately went and said, "No, this isn't it." Even though that's what I know you're going to say, that's what this is, but I'm going to tell you, no, it's not, just to protect my belief, right?
Well, the question is, can we explain NDEs in terms of natural phenomenon?
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah, and
we can do.
absolutely.
And second, do we need, or would it be desirable to have something in addition to what we know? And so far, at least, the answer is no.
Well, not only that, and then they additionally lied and say they're all the same, and I'm like, no, they're not.
No,
Actually,
they're
the I looked at there's not that many metadata studies of it, which is interesting. But part of the problem is the definition of NDE is not very clear cut because it's not a scientific sort of thing. Um, so it's not well defined, and then death isn't well defined necessarily either. So But it's just like, no, you're wrong, and but you start off, look, I'm right, and here's why I'm right, and I'm gonna tell you, and then of course it ended with, and get your head out of your rear end, you'll be sorry one day, and I'm like, oh yeah. When you don't have an argument, just go through that. That's just that threat of, ooh, something, if you don't believe the right thing, something bad will happen.
Even if you don't buy my arguments, God still loves you and still holds you accountable. William Lane
Right.
Craig.
Yeah, you're gonna go to hell if you don't believe the right thing, or whatever the threat is. It's just like, whatever, I mean, that for me, it's like, once I understood logic, I'm like, a logically coherent being um would not offer an ad balium as a way to try to convince you to do or not do something. Now, we humans do, but we're not logically coherent beings all the time. We so this God can't possibly be a logically coherent being, simply for the fact that it's doing an ad balium. So there you go. If God's not logical, then why do you even trust it for other things? So uh, they have their reasons, of course, and they, but I think that do you think that atheism or non-belief is liberating, but it's also just kind of a reflection of, this is how things are,
Well, if it's liberate, well, I said earlier that there's a feeling of being liberated, but I think that's incidental. I don't think anyone should choose or try to immerse themselves into a situation that will compel a certain belief just because that belief would be liberating. I think that's
right.
I think the word for that is fideism. And I'm not a big fan of that. I think you should align your reasoning process to what is most likely to lead to true beliefs, and exclude false beliefs.
Mm. And what got you? Speaking of that, what got you to start doing YouTube for this particular topic, of atheism, of non-belief, of talking against the theistic videos? What finally decided you that this is something to do?
Well, the first time, as I said, I was one of the early atheist YouTubers, and mostly it was just techno joy. This new YouTube was like a year or two old, and everyone was doing it, or not everyone, but a lot of people were doing it. And I thought about, there's no reason I can't do this, and it looks like fun. And I, ever since college, I was no longer quite as gung ho and unthinking, leaping into the fray. I was more thoughtful about it, but I still felt like I have a lot of things to say, so this might be a good place to say them. So I got a cheap little webcam, and I did that. After a couple of years, a combination of real life stress and equipment breakdown and YouTube drama, it existed back then just as it does today, led me to just kind of give up on it. And the reason I came back a couple months ago, has it been a couple of months now? Well, one of the reasons I left was I slowly started to realize that, honestly, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, is actually a pastor. She's a Methodist pastor, and she's one of my favorite people in the world. She's the kind of pastor who dyes her hair and paints her clerical collar the colors of the rainbow. She's that kind of pastor. And I began to realize I kind of have more in common with Christians like her than with the more right-wing atheists. So I don't really, and I kind of began to branch out and talk about politics more, and I realized that was just raising my blood pressure. I didn't want to do that. This is the late Bush, early Obama era. Birthers. Or do you remember birthers? That was
Oh yeah.
that was quite the
You
phenomenon.
finally got the long form of that.
Yeah.
It's like
When I
it's like, here, leave me alone. It's like, yeah, well, that didn't prove anything. It's like,
when I realized that that talking about those kinds of things were what I was talking about more than about atheism, when I realized that it was my blood pressure, I kind of realized it was time to scale back. The reason I came back is that I've kind of gone full circle. I've realized that, you know, Christianity, if you look at people like Frank Turek and other evangelicals who supported Donald Trump, knowing full well that there is no way in hell he's a Christian. They just want power. And they're using Christianity as a smokescreen because they think people will buy into that. And they
Oh
just
yeah,
want
even Biden will talk about God. I mean that's like you can't be so far. No, I think that somebody was in Congress that was an open atheist, but so yeah, because they did the what is it called when they do the prayer thing, and he was like, let's celebrate the fact that we exist and all this. He did like this atheist non-prayer thing. It was great, but so far nobody's been a president that's an open atheist. It's just like
it's not quite the case anymore that open atheism is political suicide, but it's still very, very hazardous to your health.
it's very, I would imagine it'd be very difficult because the Bible Belt is, that's a lot of voters that just won't vote simply because you didn't believe in God.
Because you're insufficiently fervent, even.
Yeah.
Because you don't believe in their God.
Right. So you have to,
But more to the point, because you, the atheist, will not give them power.
Right.
That was Donald Trump's appeal.
Yeah.
When I come into office, Trump said Christians will have power in this country.
Yeah.
And Christians gleefully quoted that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's power. I mean, whatever power there is, the majority groups already have that. Kind of that's just how it is in a democracy already. So, it's like you guys are crazy. You already have political power and pull and whatever. It's and it's this endless non-logical argument of kind of like this is the stance, and it's like there's no nuance. That's what bothers me about that sort of thing is it's like, oh, all the things that this person did are bad because of whatever. It's like, they did this good thing here. It's like, no, they're bad and evil. Okay, whatever. It's like, but they did this good thing. No, it's like, oh my goodness, let's talk about God instead. Forget it. Yeah. At least God is more, it's almost more tangible than figuring out who to vote for or how or whatever, all that mess. And it's like, oh, let's not talk about politics. It's like, oh, let's talk about, let's bring it up anyways. Well, it's part of your journey. You can't help it, right?
Yeah. When a Christian quotes Psalm 14:1, the fool says it in his heart, there is no God. I say it goes on to say that there is not one that doeth any good. So all I need to do is find one atheist that doeth good, and that's the Bible disproven, correct?
Right.
They're not impressed with that.
Well, they can't do good because there's no good without
God, right?
Without God, and whatever, and it's just
right.
nonsense. Yeah. Well, what is God? That's that question too. Like, well, who decides what God even is in the first place? I mean, what are we talking about? What is this thing that you're bringing up? And because the Hindus have their views and the Christians have theirs, and everybody has, all these other cultures have had different creation myths and stories. And
the best debate to suggest to someone, if you want to convince them that atheism is true, show them a debate between two Christians.
Yeah, there's no, it's
what
no
salvation is
there. They can't
just watch them go back and forth and ask yourself, where's God? Why isn't he setting this up?
Yeah.
Why isn't he setting this straight? I mean,
it's like, how does the soul stone work? Like, we could debate, could debate that endlessly, but there's no real answer to it. The answer is magic. That's how it works. There's no, I mean, how does Thanos, what's his power and why is it this and this and then the movie? It's like, because it's a movie. It's not real. And I like to go, well, how did, where did the chromosomes for Jesus come from anyways? Well, it's just, it's God, dude. Does, it's like, yeah, but how did it do it? Like, mechanically speaking, what did God just teleport some stuff from Joseph over there, or
Yeah,
did he
theists
make
have.
it new, or what exactly happened there at a
Yeah,
mechanical level?
generally speaking, theists have absolutely no mechanical explanation for how omniscience or how omnipotence works. And that's fine because there are lots and lots of things in the universe that we don't yet have an explanation for. And maybe we'll have one day, maybe we won't. So, but we don't regard that as a problem, but they want to say it is a problem.
Mm.
That's
What
the
do
problem.
you
They want to say it's a problem when they don't have an explanation for omnipotence or omniscience.
what do you make of when people inevitably accuse you of it's like you believe in abiogenesis. I had that comment recently. I was like, you believe in the gaps of naturalism. You just believe in abiogenesis, but there's no proof of it. There's just no proof of it, and we don't know. So it's got to be intelligence. And I'm like,
We don't yet know how abiogenesis happened, but we know that it happened. And the reason we know that it happened is because we have absolutely no reason to think that a guy was involved in any step of the process. We can't rule it out. We can never rule it out completely, except by logical arguments like incompatible attributes arguments. But we can't rule that out. But we have to dismiss such an extraordinary claim until and unless we have extraordinary evidence to back it up. Now,
you
the fact
just
that the
you
fact
just
that
want to
abiogen
sin. That's all it is.
yeah, if I wanted to sin, I would still be a Christian. Then I could sin all I want, ask God for forgiveness, and enjoy eternal afterlife and a selfish life, best of both worlds.
Right, right.
So, but yeah, someday we hopefully will know how abiogenesis happened. Maybe we'll even see it happen somewhere else in the universe. Who knows? But that is one of the gaps that 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 Christians like to fill, that theists like to fill with God. And it would, I'm not going to lie, it would give us cause for thought. Maybe God does go here, if not for the fact that there have been many such gaps in human history, and most of them have been filled by now.
Yeah, every time humans have said God, it turns out to be, natural
There are
whatever.
only a few things left right now. At least there are only a few things left, which you can still say, well, maybe God did that.
Well, you can always move it back. Of
Yeah,
course,
you
you
can
can
always move it back.
you can always move it back. And go, well, I said, look, let's pretend that we had the formula that proved everything and explained everything. Either the person would one reject it because they do that with we know that people reject things like biological evolution already. So it's like you would either reject it or you would simply say that God made the stuff that made that anyways because it wouldn't you couldn't you couldn't let that belief go because it is in your brain an important thing and your brain doesn't want to let it go or can't maybe it can't let it go. I don't I think that it's possible that some brains are wired that they cannot not believe in a god once they've had that concept put in there. I don't know that that's the case, but
Yeah.
you know um what what is it that are you trying to deconvert people, educate people? What is it that you're trying to do, or is there kind of any goal with that for your channel?
Well, if I do end up deconverting people, that would be fine because the more the merrier. But of course, atheism by itself is not enough. You have to have reason. You have to value reason enough that you're willing to let it sit in judgment over your worldview. And I actually have an upcoming video um, that possibly this weekend it'll be up, where I talk about magisterial and ministerial reason and how an atheist can make use of that dichotomy. That's something that Craig and Martin Luther were big about, where magisterial reason sits over your worldview and judges it like a magistrate. Ministerial reason is it assumes that your worldview is correct and asks, okay, how can we serve this worldview best? Um, and we atheists tend to give, poo ministerial reason, but um, I'm wondering if maybe there isn't a place for it now that atheism is as established in the world as it is, without, and I can't emphasize this too strongly, without giving up magisterial reason, without giving up our ability to judge whether our worldview was correct in the first place. Like I said, that video is hopefully going to be up this weekend. I've been working pretty fast and furious on it, but
Yeah, I'm interested in that. The all the of course it boils down a lot to epistemology, and that seems to be the core thing where the believer has some sort of epistemology that I don't, because they can come to this conclusion that I just cannot come to, and I'm like, is it, and I go, okay, am I arguing the wrong way? What is, how do we communicate this thing? Because it's like, well, everything that I know I can prove in this way, but I can't do that with your God.
yeah,
And that doesn't seem to work. And yeah, so it's just, and of course you get into the more like esoteric questions. What's your what's your ethical system? Where's your morals coming from, and all that.
sure.
And all that seems like, those are sort of the questions that sort of video can kind of start
Yeah,
to shine a light on, I think.
yeah, because those questions do deserve answers. What's your moral system without God? Um, and that's definitely going to be something I address. But to answer your question, what's kind of the goal of my channel? It's to act as a counteracting force to the Christian apologists who are trying to bring people into this, let's face it, socio-political movement based on something that
Is
they probably believe. They probably do believe that it's true, but they don't believe it so strongly that they're willing to let reason stand over it, or they don't believe in it so strongly that they'll poo having political power. Right?
what do you think that Islam is a greater threat than Christianity, given what they've done?
I don't know enough about Islam to say what it will do when it becomes the dominant religion in the world, which probably demographically probably happen a few decades from now. I think it could become the greater threat when it becomes dominant. It perhaps is the greater threat now. I don't feel I know enough about that to kind of give a qualified opinion. Since I'm immersed in Christianity in the part of the world where I live, that's kind of what I focus on.
Yeah, yeah. I run across Islam apologists now and again.
Uh-huh.
Usually, it's not even in English. So you can't do anything with
Yeah,
that.
see, I search for atheism every day on YouTube, and a whole lot of they're toward the bottom for me, but a whole lot of things that come back, the results are not in English.
Yeah, a lot of the Islam apologetics seems a lot less refined than Christianity. It's just sort of fiat asserting like our, I think I heard, well, no other religion claims that God it made that religion except ours, or whatever. All these like just, well, our book says it, basically. That's really what they're going, and like, oh,
Well,
you ask the atheist this question when they try to ask you to prove God, and basically you shift the topic. You don't ever answer the question. You don't ever,
yeah, it could. Let's not let our cultural biases, persuade us that Islamic apologetics is not a threat, and it's
Oh
possible
no,
that
it
by the
is.
time I retire, if I'm somehow still doing this, I'll be talking about Islam more than about Christianity. But that's for the future. That's kind
Yeah,
of
it's just it's not
down
it's
the
not
road.
widespread. I think that's why,
Yeah.
I just wonder. It's like, because I get saddled with the oh, you're just going after the Christians complaint every now and again. I'm like, I'll go after whoever. Just give me the video. I can't, give me a Buddhist. I don't know. I can't find anything. This is all I find. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'll go after any of the any argument, any and point out the errors because that's what I like to do. It's just Christianity is a big thing, especially in the United States, and the sad state of denial of science because of religious stuff is very much a thing.
Like I said about the flat earther at the beginning, it sometimes has cause for despair. But the fact is, however much that it's a cartoon, flat, the earth is flat, the web is still up there, man. It's still going to send us pictures, whether you like it or not, whether you want to engage with it or not. So there's that going for us.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe he was joking, but I who knows? It's impossible. Because so many people believe that. People believe in weird, wild things.
Yeah.
Is there any reason to believe in psychic phenomenon or afterlife, spirit, souls, angels, anything of that nature, or are all of those things something that you would say not to believe in as well?
I have looked for reasons to believe in the afterlife. I have looked for reasons to believe in psychic phenomena because I think all those things would be really cool if they existed. And nothing.
Mm.
The short answer is no.
Yeah. What I get this question every now and again. What's the purpose of life?
Depends on what you think life should be and what you think life is. It's there's no the analogy I use when I talk about like things written in stone or things written in diamond on the wall of the universe. There is nothing like that says what our purpose is on the atheist worldview, which means you kind of have to accept that there is no purpose, which doesn't appeal to me that much, or you have to find your own purpose. And when anyone says, "Oh, that's not good enough because it's not written in diamond on the wall of the universe," it's good enough for me if it works for me.
Let's say 100 years from now, somebody stumbles onto this video. What message would you have for them?
Find a time machine and send back some stock market tips.
Yeah.
Because I with any luck, videos like this will help me push me over 1,000 subscribers, but that YouTube money's not coming in yet. So I wouldn't mind some little extra flow. Also, when can we expect the flying cars already?
I'd love to know. I think that people the way they drive now, I don't trust them in the air.
Yeah.
Well, anything else that you'd like to say or add to this? Anything you want to promote or?
Well, what I'd like to promote is my channel, which I think you had the link to it earlier. It's just look for David John Wellman on the on YouTube. That's where you'll find my videos. The only other thing I want to promote is courage. Have the courage to use your reason, even if you suspect it may take you places you're afraid of going, especially if you suspect it may take you places that you're afraid of going. Nobody has ever regretted doing that. I can promise you, no one has ever regretted. Some people, when they leave Christianity, they feel sad. They feel like they've lost something important, but they have never regretted losing that.
Well, thank you so much for this. Find your content very interesting, and I hope people will check it out. And it's, we need lots of people out there, delivering this message of reason and logic and thoughtful discussions about this weird thing called God that people believe in, and discovering what reality is and how it really works. Maybe we'll find a God. I don't know. Who knows? But
right.
Right now doesn't. We haven't seen that, so it's like, well, when we find it, that'd be cool. If we do, but right now we haven't. Maybe it's waiting for us to, mature or something. I don't know.
Well, the time to believe that is after it happens,
Yeah,
not
after
before.
the evidence. Right. Okay, well, keep on keeping on. Lobsters exist, and yeah, that's it. Now it's time to go insane. This is I think that's how to end the video, because that's how I end a lot of my videos. It's just
Going insane?
I just completely lose coherence and like what is anything? Like what are things made out of? Like
speaking in tongues?
Yeah, what no, like the subatomic particle and like Planck and what's that made out of? Is it just energy? What's energy? How does anything work? I don't know anymore.
I don't know. I'm excited to be part of a system of thought that actually has a chance of finding answers, though.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
All right. Okay.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. This has been a blast.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. Finn. Yes.
Take care.
All right.
The rest is up to you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. You got to say your thing. What's your thing now?
I'm David John Wellman, and the rest is up to you. What's your thing?
Unless until we have a empirical evidence, repeatable test, or a valid and sound argument, we must be skeptical of the conclusions.
Good thing.
Yeah. All right. I'm hitting.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Lobsters.